I've chosen another even-numbered problem from your textbook. Sine theta over 1 minus cosine theta minus sine theta cosine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. So that's my left-hand side, is equal to cosecant theta times 1 plus cosine squared theta. Okay. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to pause the video, try this one, and then tune back in to check your work. Well, let me say a couple of things about strategy, first of all. First of all, these problems can look really intimidating because it is not obvious that those two things are equal. It's not obvious to me that they're equal. I believe that they are because I got this from the textbook, okay? And I believe that we can prove that, but it's not at all obvious. So it's not like you should look at it and say, ah, yes, of course that's true. No, they're almost never going to be obvious like that. What you want to do is just pick a side and start simplifying it. Try to make whatever side you start with look simpler than it did before. And if you keep doing that, eventually you're going to start to see, oh, they are the same. Okay. But it shouldn't be obvious at first most of the time. Second point is, I don't always know ahead of time whether I'm going to just start with one side and then arrive at the other, or whether I'm going to use the 3-paragraph method. I pick a side to start with and I start simplifying it. And if I can see how to get to the other side, I go there. And if I don't see it, then I start working with the other side and move to the 3-paragraph method. So you just pick a side and start working. Okay. Also, there's more than one way to prove these identities. So if your work doesn't match my work exactly, it doesn't necessarily mean that you were wrong. Okay. So if it doesn't match exactly, great idea is to come to office hours or check in with a tutor and just say, here's how I proved it. It didn't quite match what was on the video, but I think it's right. Can you just take a look at it to see? And I'll always be happy to do that. Okay, so pause the video, give this a shot. Welcome back. So I'm going to pick a side to start with. I think I'm actually going to start with the right-hand side, just because that looks a little bit simpler, and I'm thinking if I can simplify that, then I can switch and use the 3-paragraph method, but that'll give me a very well-defined goal for what I want to simplify this to. Okay. So the right-hand side was cosecant of theta times 1 plus cosine squared theta. And I think I'm going to rewrite that in terms of sine. I very often, unless I can see the connection between things with the other trig functions, I almost always will switch to sines and cosines. So I'm just going to say this is 1 over sine theta times 1 plus cosine squared theta. And then I can distribute. I can do that multiplication. So I can say that's going to be 1 over sine theta plus cosine squared theta over sine theta. Okay. And if I want, I guess I could actually do the arithmetic and combine that as one fraction. I think I'm going to go ahead and just leave it like that. That's what I've gotten the right-hand side to. Okay. So, new paragraph, not connected to that work over there. And this is not meant to be what I just banned a moment ago, which is having the left-hand side here and the right-hand side here and just working down that column. I'm not trying to do that. I'm simply out of space here. Normally I would just continue below. I've run out of space, so I'm going to move over here. So it's like I'm on a new piece of paper almost. So I can say the left-hand side, well, that was sine theta over 1 minus cosine theta minus sine theta cosine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. Now, I kind of like here that this is already in terms of just sines and cosines. I'm thinking I probably want to find a common denominator to simplify this by actually doing the subtraction. So these two denominators don't actually have any factors in common. So I'm going to say this is sine theta over 1 minus cosine theta. I'm going to multiply this one by 1. in the form of 1 plus cosine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. That way I'll get to a common denominator, which is just the product of those two. Then minus sine theta cosine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. And this one I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of 1 minus cosine theta over 1 minus cosine theta. So now let's see what we get. I'm going to have here, the denominator is going to be 1 minus cosine squared theta. We've FOILed that out enough that you might recognize that the outsides and insides are going to cancel. And if you do recognize that, you can jump right to that. Now on top, I'm going to distribute that sine theta. So I'm getting sine theta plus sine theta cosine theta. Minus this fraction, which is going to have that same denominator of 1 minus cosine squared theta. And again, I'm going to do the distribution. So this is going to be sine theta cosine theta times 1 minus sine theta cosine squared theta. Now, I'm running out of space here, so I'm going to need to erase some stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is just up here write down that I had simplified the right-hand side to 1 over sine theta plus cosine squared theta over sine theta. That way I can erase this work and continue simplifying that left-hand side. So I've got a common denominator. I'm going to go ahead and do the subtraction. So all of this is equal to one fraction with that common denominator of 1 minus cosine squared. And just be very careful with subtraction. I want to remember that I'm subtracting the entire top here. So we have the first top, which is sine theta plus sine theta cosine theta, minus the entire top of this second fraction, which was sine theta sine theta cosine theta minus sine theta cosine squared theta. So now this negative sign is going to distribute to each piece. So this will be equal to sine theta plus sine theta cosine theta minus sine theta cosine theta plus sine theta cosine squared theta. Now, those middle terms can't, over 1 minus cosine squared theta. Got to remember to write that denominator. Now, these middle terms cancel, so I've got sine theta plus sine theta cosine squared theta over 1 minus cosine squared theta. Now, if I take a look here, I might recognize 1 minus cosine squared. I can use my Pythagorean identity. Also, I can kind of look at what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to some signs in that denominator. So I think it's going to make sense to use that Pythagorean identity and say that this is equal to sine theta plus sine theta cosine squared theta over sine squared theta. And so here I've got a single fraction. My goal, I'm trying to make it look like the right-hand side, which is 2 fractions. So let's just distribute this division. So I'm going to have sine theta over sine squared theta plus sine theta cosine squared theta over sine squared theta. And now in both of these fractions, I can cancel one factor of sine. Now if I do that, I've got a second factor of sine here that's left over in the denominator. If I do that here, I've got the cosine squared left over on top and one factor of sine theta left on bottom. Whoops, that's a plus, not an equals. Okay. And if I take a look, that's what we had simplified the right-hand side to. Okay. So, my first paragraph, I simplified the right-hand side to this. Now, took us a little while, but we simplified the left-hand side to the same thing, and I just want to state the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side, so we've proved our identity.